good afternoon. We've got an interesting personality who's an academician come industry consultant who consults on design thinking. He's got 25 years of industry experience in consulting design thinking. He's applied design thinking to solve various industry problems. He's been a TEDx speaker, and he's an author of a book in Dutch called as Design Thinking, which is a radical change being introduced in small steps. That is one of his books. And he's currently a professor in the InHolland University on design thinking. And he switches, wears different hats, both between the industry as well as, in the academic field. So here to Guido Stompff. So good afternoon, good morning, Guido, your time. I think there was a mess up in the times, and we could definitely meet today before the weekend takes over. So please walk us through your interesting journey on how did you chance upon design thinking, and you went on to work for a couple of years, and then wearing your academic hat as well as your industry consultant hat, and then finally you even did a PhD in design thinking, and you brought out a couple of innovative ways on how to use design thinking to solve any problems across domains and various industries. So please walk us through your interesting journey on how design thinking has taken you to various places, and why did you chance upon this particular field? You could have majored in probably artificial intelligence or something else. So why this design aspect in your life?
Well, actually, it's more about innovation. And the thing is, I thank you for having me here, Kiran. The thing is that I was working as a practitioner in the field. I was working in one of those really big R&Ds with multidisciplinary teams, with IT specialists, mechanical engineers working on quite high-tech products in a Dutch company. Nowadays, it's Canon, by the way. And I was working there and having a great time in these teams. And at the same time, I started to lecture on universities. And the funny thing was, one day a week, I was lecturing at universities how to do innovation. And 4 days of the week, I was practicing innovation. And the funny thing was, these had nothing in common, these two. Because the textbooks the students were getting were basically, in those days, I'm talking about 2003, 2004, the waterfall model. So it was really like, you have to plan, get requirements straight, get your budget straight and stuff like that. And once you have that all straight, you can start and you make what you promised, what you did. Whereas in reality, I noticed that innovation is totally different. It's much more, I don't know what the right how to pronounce that word, but it's much more going in an agile way. It's much more things come out of nowhere, ideas arise in between people and things like that. So I was getting angry a little bit, and that's a good emotion to get started on a PhD, because that's going to take a lot of time to do a PhD. And I got a professor who said, well, I'm quite interested in what you believe is innovation in the wild. So I started to study innovation in the wild, in R&D teams, in IT teams, with artists who are working in collaborative settings and stuff like that, always in team settings. I filmed them, I analyzed them together with other researchers, and what we discovered indeed is that the way how innovation really works in the wild has nothing to do with this planned, organized approach that management books are saying. And the funny thing is, I did my PhD in 2012. In between, I started in 2005 next to my job, so it took me a little bit longer than normally. But this word, design thinking, started to evolve in the US, because they noticed, for instance, Roger Martin, he's an economy professor, he started to notice that actually companies like Google or Facebook, that they move forward and innovate in different ways than the textbooks. So they discovered a very similar thing, different approach. And they started to name that design thinking. So I embraced the word. I'm quite good in doing marketing as well and stuff like that. I embraced it and explained how design thinking works inside teams, how to facilitate collective intelligence. And that's what basically my PhD was on. And since I've been trying to translate that to water it down in more
I
regular
think, sorry
language.
to interrupt you. I think you call it some team cognition or something like that, right? I think your PhD is on.
Yeah, that's one of those very difficult things, and that's one of the things I've always been struggling with, because when we start to talk about team intelligence, team cognition, or it's people find it very hard to imagine. And nowadays I use a metaphor. Maybe you have it in your country as well, that you can see swarms of birds who are swarming together. And the funny thing is, none of those birds inside a swarm knows exactly where the swarm is going, whereas as a swarm as a whole
It's a collective
shows
force. Yeah.
they demonstrate collective intelligence, because they respond to a train which is passing by and stuff like that, and they still stay together. And this is basically what I say, a nice metaphor for collective intelligence.
Yeah.
And I was looking like, how can you do that in innovation?
That reminds me of our CEO's talk. Actually, he said that albatross, when they fly together in a V shape, they gain more momentum. So even if one of the few of the birds were not to flap their wings, they still gain the momentum and they fly higher and soar higher. So as a team, as you said, I think the collective intelligence of the teams takes you to a lot more places than you yourself can probably go.
It is, and it's also that's the reason why I like the metaphor. None of the birds and none of the persons who are inside a multidisciplinary team knows exactly what they will deliver at the end, yet they will deliver something at the end of which they will say in the end, this is exactly what we planned, didn't we? No, we did not, actually. And that's really funny.
Correct.
But you need, from an academic perspective, you need to take the lens on the team rather than on the individual. But once you do that,
Correct.
you can understand innovation and you start to understand what these teams need.
Correct.
Rather
Correct.
than, yeah.
I think you somewhere in your talk, I remember you mentioned we want to work towards a possibility that we might go where we actually intend. Because like the Rumi, he said that, while you walk, the path appears. So I think, as you said, the path is not very clear in the beginning, but I think once you keep on the path of rapid experimentation, you will chance upon something fantastic and the path emerges out of nowhere. So
It emerges in the collective, and the funny thing is, it matters who is in the collective and in what environment the collective is. So you can actually mix and think about those things, but what they eventually will develop, what the innovation is, that's hard to predict. And this is where the clash is between classic management thinking, where they want to know upfront what they will get for the money. Let me put it like that. So I'm going to spend 2 years with 60 persons on an IT project. Well, then I need to know what I'm going to get. Whereas in reality, the innovation in the wild, what you see is you can send off 60 people. You can put in different combinations of people in a specific environment with a specific problem. And if it's done well, if it's managed well, you get an innovation which will make money, which is very interesting, but no one could predict exactly what they would end with. So this that's the reason why I named my book Radical Change in Small Steps, by the way, because the thing is, people think that's almost magical and it's also risky. But the thing is, if you do design thinking, you go through it in very small steps and you take along all stakeholders and the managers. So it's not, even though we do not know how we're going to end up after 2 years, it's still a process which is quite controlled and you can find your way, and managers will like it and things like that, because we go through it in small steps rather than in, oh, for 2 years start running. No, that's not the way how it works.
true. I think the way you said, I think in one of your blogs, I read that there's always this dichotomy between management and the venture capitalists or the guys who are going to fund your venture, as to they just want one idea and they want to know where exactly they're going. And that's stifling the innovation itself, because innovation is not exactly from point A to B. It could go zigzag and through a lot of paths and then finally arrive at something.
Yeah.
Because
And actually, if you take a look in the Netherlands, where I'm based, I don't know if it's also in India or in other countries, but in the Netherlands, the government, when they have large IT projects, they are obliged to write down in an open tender process, which is named. So they have to write down exactly, this is what we want. For instance, for a new software for doing the taxes for the civilians. Really big ICT project. They have to write down the requirements and then have it open and to get all possible IT companies to give a price for it. And then what they do is they give a prize, and then they can start, the winner takes all, they can start, make it. And in the end, we have already had several parliamentary discussions on it, big time, because it's always much more costly. It's not delivering. And they believe the problem is the IT sector. And what I say is, no, the problem is that you try to put down upfront requirements of what is needed. You don't know what you need because you're making something new. How can we know what we want, what we need, unless someone shows it to us? And in order to get there, you have to go through small steps. So in my country, the way how these big governmental projects are financed basically kills innovation.
Yeah, I think that's the true of every country. It's the same, pretty much the same way here, because it's the fixed budget project without allowing scope for the agile part of it to spin in, as you said, which is actually the market reality. If you want something really innovative and radical, then you have to allow people to fail fast forward and all that. And
Exactly.
you can't have a fixed budget project and time based. So it has to be, based on the time and the expansion of the time and resources, so it can't really
And enable some exploring that we find our ways. And you're mentioning agile and design thinking are really like two hands on the same belly, as we said. It's a Dutch expression, by the way. They're very much related. However, if I take a comparison between agile, which I know very well, and maybe some of your listeners also took a look at the original Agile manifesto. It's really nice to read. And design thinking at one hand. Design thinking is more about the what are we making? What will we deliver? Finding out, exploring how we'll deliver that. And agile is much more on the process, on making, ensuring that we're going to deliver it in the end. But together, perfect match.
Yeah, I think I just read somewhere saying that there is a politician who triggered you to do your PhD or the way things. So, was he? How was he the trigger for your work on design thinking? Because he exactly said it's not. I mean, I probably want to hear it from you. How was he a trigger for your work?
You prepared well, Kieran, and I'm amazed. He and this may be a little bit of embarrassing, actually, what I'm going to explain right now, because here we see again the Western world in this answer. I think it was 2000. It was before my PhD, and I was already thinking about it. But I was listening to this guy in a lecture in a large theater, and he was giving an excellent talk about the difficulties of what politicians face. And he, by then, was I don't know how to explain that in English. It's not the minister, but one step below that, for developing countries, for supporting developing countries. And he gave the example that if we want children in India, this is the embarrassing part,
Oh,
give the exact same opportunities, lifestyle, and wealth as we give to the children in the Netherlands, the world would go bankrupt and die from carbon dioxide and energy problems and all these things, because the footprint is too large. We cannot do that. We have to find other ways. Now I'm already framing it as a design thinker. We have to find other ways. He was just saying it's a dilemma. We have to choose between two evil things.
okay.
And that's the politician side. So we're going to have discussions. He explained, we're going to have stakeholders. We're going to involve people from India. We're going to involve people from the Netherlands. And then we make a decision. And I was like, is there a third option? Can't we actually come up with new ideas rather than just this dilemma from this is bad and this is bad? Now, what do we choose? Can we find new ways, new things? And the funny thing was, that was the moment I discovered I was thinking differently as a design thinker. Because in the entire audience, people were looking at me like, you're very naive, aren't you? And I was like, if I'm naive, I'd rather be naive and optimistic and trying to move things forward rather than make this terrible decision that we are making right now. And it was actually, indeed, I said before in this meeting, I got angry, and that's why I started a PhD. This was the moment I got angry. I was really like, if I talk with IT guys, we always think like, okay, so we have a problem A and B, it's not going to work. Let's think about option C. That's the way how R&D people think, how IT people think. They think in let's create something new. Let's create new possibilities. Maybe we fail, but at least let's give it a try. And now I was suddenly talking to politicians who said, no, it's A and B, choose.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think
You understand?
so. You wanted to solve such big, hairy, wicked problems, as you said. If you were to,
that one is really big, eh?
correct, that was too big.
No, but to be honest, nowadays, as a professor, but this is 15 years later, in Amsterdam, we are having urban living labs on not this kind of big problems, but for instance, on over-tourism, because Amsterdam is flooding with tourists, and we have a lot of social exclusion because prices go sky high of living, eating, stuff like that. So the original people actually are moving out of the city center just for the tourist and stuff like that. So that's a smaller social problem, but still it's a social problem. And that's where I'm now working on with students and other lecturers on these kind of wicked problems.
Oh, okay. So, what was your thought process if you were to, like, as you said, let us look at the possibilities. So, did you want to crowdsource the whole problem, or you want to involve, socio-political interaction and industry interaction to solve it? So, what exactly was your brainchild when you said this politician is probably on the wrong side? He is talking of cutting down the population or something like. So, what was your thought process in terms of solving that big hairy wicked problem? So, if you had to solve it
That's
today,
a very big one.
yeah. So, if you were to solve it today, how do you do it differently with all your knowledge and your experience given to it?
Well, the thing is, there is not one single brain that can actually solve these kind of things.
Correct. So, basically, the process.
Exactly. So what we have to do is we have to develop a co-creation process, a participatory process in which we invite many different stakeholders. And this is the part which I believe is very often missing in these modern participatory co-creation sessions. What we have in the Netherlands, for instance, what you see, and this is the wrong way. I'm just saying it, that we invite everyone over, then we have this big circle of people sitting all around, and they're going to have a discussion.
Okay.
And I'm against, I'm in favor, and why are you? And we just have this dialogue, which is important, but no new possibilities. No one is envisioning what could be done also. And what I say is, so next to this learning community, you also need creative people with some time and who are listening there, who can actually use their creative skills even on the spot to come up with different ideas, with different frames. That's a typical word I'm using, different ways of looking at things, but also give some time to develop more alternative frames and present it again into the group. So you need to have people who can think literally outside the box, make them explore it, making it very visible. It's about imagining things, not because they know what the answer is, but because they can offer other frames, other ideas to people so that they can think and reflect on it. How can people know what they want unless they see what might be possible?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic statement, actually, because when you say frames, why did you chance upon the word frames? Because perspectives, as I said, the other word for frames is perspectives. So was it because of your interest in photography, or how did you chance upon the word frames, or was it part of your PhD work?
Well, no, that's typically coming from standing on the shoulders of giants. There is this very, very famous researcher who's talking about cognition, about how people think and stuff like that. His name is Donald Schoen. He's famous for his book, The Reflective Practitioner, How Professionals Work in Practice. So your audience, if they're professional and experienced, they all work along the lines of what this guy described. And he said, these people, professionals, they do not start reading a lot and doing a research. No, they have a frame in mind, like, oh, so I'm listening to this. I have a customer here, I have a client here, and he's giving me a problem. I think it might be something like this. So he frames it based on his experience, does an experiment to check if he's right. Can be a doctor, can be an IT specialist. And if so, he moves on. And he's the guy who started to say, you need to frame the situation.
Okay.
Do within. So, and in my line of the academic field, so design thinking, there are actually two big people to stand on the shoulders of, and one of them is Donald Schoen. He's very
how do you pronounce his last name? Donald what's Shaw?
Schoen. I can show you the book if you want to. So.
Oh yeah, please.
If I can find it so quickly, where is it? It's an old book actually, Donald Schoen. I'm just showing it to you so that you can.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
So then you have it reflected.
So he's an American guy. Is an American professor.
Yeah, he's an American guy, and he's part of a let me say a group of people in the 80s and 90s of last century who came up, for instance, with double loop learning, framing, and the more things that nowadays are omnipresent in literature, and we use it all the time. So
IBM calls it as double diamond instead of double loop. IBM calls it as diamond. Yeah, double diamond.
That's for design thinking what you're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah. Now this is an interesting point that you mentioned, Kira, because and this is I was just saying this is Donald Schoen, reflective practitioner. Then I get the other book as well. Then you have the two perspectives on design thinking. This one is a Nobel Prize winner. Let me see where he is. Did I have it here? Do I have it here? I hope so. Here it is. Sorry. This is another big man in my history, Herbert Simon, Nobel Prize winner.
Okay.
The Sciences of the Artificial.
Okay.
He's actually one of the first real big people on artificial intelligence as well, by the way. So he's so two Americans, and this guy explained what design thinking is, why we need a different kind of logic. This guy said he was looking at practitioners and he said, hey, they think completely different than what we thought. The funny thing is, this is the big divide in design thinking. This is the rational perspective, and this is more the practical perspective. And why I'm saying this, the double diamond you just mentioned, that's the rational perspective. Because basically the double diamond says, first go out, explore the problem, define the problem.
Converge, diverge.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how rational people like to see it. But it has nothing to do with the practice.
Okay.
If you take a look at the practice, and more academics are in this school nowadays as well. So these are really two paradigms, different schools of thought.
But sorry to interrupt you, Guido, there. Actually, when you say why the practice is different from the rational part, because even in practice, you actually diverge, brainstorm on a lot of ideas, then you converge. And then again, you brainstorm on a lot of them. So you do the converge, diverge, even in practice.
It's totally true. It's totally true. But the reason why I'm saying I think the double diamond is a little bit problematic is it suggests still a kind of linearity. So first the problem, then we define the problem, then we diverge on the problem of solutions, and then we converge on solutions. Whereas in reality, design thinking, problem space and solution space, they go up hand in hand. I'm going to give an example. Maybe that's a good thing, so that your audience understands as well. I'm just talking about a student, and she was in one of those things that's on the internet you can find of me. Unfortunately, is Dutch. I invited her just to explain a bit what they did. Now, this was the thing. They got an assignment for a grass that grows in the Netherlands to come up with something circular, sustainable solution to use this grass, because it's growing everywhere and we have a lot of it. Can't we do something with it? And the thing is, they did some research and found out that actually you could, like bamboo, can make some kind of materials like that to resemble plastic with it. So maybe we can make a kind of plastic with it, with cups and stuff like that. So that was the first double diamond. Let me put it like that. So, hey, this is grass. What can you use it for? You can make plastics out of it. What can we do with the plastics? We can make cups out of it, and that's it. Now, it took them, I think, 3 days to come up with this. Then they had another cycle, because what kind of cup do we want to make? Can be a coffee cup, can be a plastic cup, can be a recycled cup. Maybe we can do something with soup. I don't know why they came up with soup. It was Corona time. there are many people in the Netherlands, because of the lockdown, who were lonely. So they started to think, maybe we should do something with loneliness, soup, and this new plastic. I'm looking like this right now. As a coach, you're also like, why? Why do you come up with this strange idea? And one of the girls, the Dutch girls, she started to move around, went to a lot of grocery stores. She was asking, do you have any courgettes, tomatoes and stuff like that you throw out at the end of the day? Yes, we have loads of them. Can we please have them? Because we're going to make soup out of it. And I can go on this case for an hour, but they ended up in the Ministry of the Netherlands, presenting their idea that for social cohesion in a big town in the Netherlands, Haarlem, that they actually gonna deliver soup to people made from the spilled vegetables from the grocery stores, in that they are all participating from these grocery stores in the city. They will make it and they will present it in the soups, and they're going to share it to people who come together at Fridays, rather than drinking beer, to come together and to meet each other, to get social cohesion in a neighborhood. Now, why I'm explaining this is very typical for a successful design thinking project. In the end, they came up with something it's in the newspapers, it was everywhere, like, oh, what a brilliant idea. We didn't know that we wanted such an idea. If you just stick to the linear double diamond, they would have ended with plastic for cups.
True. Okay, yeah, I get the point. I get the point.
You go over like this. So,
Correct.
and that's, I'm not saying the double diamond is wrong. I'm just saying it. You mentioned it, right?
You're
it's
limiting your possibilities by making it think only that way.
If you just say it's about diverging and converging all the time, and you do it 20 times in iterations, and I say yes, then we're on it.
Correct.
That's yeah.
But you could tangentially break off into many different directions, and as you said, arrive at many different possibilities instead of probably a handful of them.
And actually, in this example from these students, you can see as well, they have different frames. So they looked at it from a material perspective. They looked from a perspective of wasted vegetables. They looked at the perspective from social cohesion. I can go on. And actually, they even had other frames which were not so successful. So they explored multiple frames. And in the end, came up with an idea.
This had a government funding. This particular project, did it have the backing of the government?
They worked together with a couple of governmental partners in that area who wanted to do something with waste food and stuff like that, but they developed it themselves. So it's not that they were clients. No, they came up with the ideas and then they turned into clients.
Oh, okay. So,
so it's also good sales, actually, what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's taking care of the ecosystem end to end completely. And as you said, somewhere in your talk, I thought you were mentioning about the loneliness of elderly people. So if people get a chance, especially in the Western world, this can be a replicable model, for sustainable societies.
It's possible. It's possible.
Completely sustainable that way.
Yeah.
So that is good. So what exactly, how do you think, because as you said, design thinking, you need to have a culture of design thinking for it to foster in companies and so on. So how do you think it's going to work because you cannot, entice people, I'm going to reward you in case you come up with this. Does it happen based on rewards and recognition, or how do you actually imbibe this culture into companies? Because now I see a lot of companies are pushing their employees towards design thinking workshops and so on, like, you do this, you do this, you do this. But then they have a timeline and a deadline. And of course, they have to meet it with the practical realities of meeting their bottom lines and all that. Otherwise, they're pushed into obsolescence. So how do you think that culture can be best fostered, wherein people are given freedom to innovate and stuff like that? What's been your experience when you've been? I could see that you worked with Canon printers or something, OCE, or your background there.
Large companies and IT
exactly.
companies. Yeah.
So what do you think is the best recipe for getting that done?
I'm gonna act it out. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to do a small acting. Same situation. But I'm going to do the same thing twice. I'm going to pitch. Let's imagine I'm an IT developer and I have a great idea inside a company.
Yeah.
Or I think we should go there, something like that. Okay, the first pitch normally is, okay, guys, I have this plan, and it's going to take us 2 years of development. I did a very thorough market research. I've mapped all the customers out. It's going to cost us at least 2 million, and we're going to start, and I need 60 persons from you, and so on. Dear Mr. Management, can I get the money, please? Second case. Okay, dear Mr. Management, I was looking around. I was noticing I was at a couple of customers. They all seem to have the same problem. I did some market research. Apparently, this is something which is omnipresent. I like to have 2 people, 1 month, and we're going to make a prototype, and we're going to show it to these customers, to see if I'm right that we have some kind of idea. It's going to cost you, I think, 100,000 euros, 2 people, 1 month. Is that okay? This is what I act out to management and CEOs. And now I say, okay, the first one was the classic way. The second one is the design way. What do you like to proceed?
Obviously,
Now,
the second way.
Always they're like, oh, so you're going to test out if the idea is going to work out. Yeah, I'm going to test out. And when I tested it, because it's not the right idea, I'm pretty sure, I learned what the better idea would be. And then I'm back with you. I'm going to talk with you about it. And then the CEO says, I like that. I really like that. I think we should do that more. And why I'm saying this is the trick I'm using is making things small in order to get far. And because I make things small, they are always like, oh, it's just a little bit of money in 1 month. Give him the time. Yes, just go ahead, just do it. And then we create this culture of doing experiments, exploring, using small budgets to test, make simple prototypes in order to get to the big innovations.
Absolutely.
So I sell actually the process, and the cultural changes slowly by itself, because the guy who's coming next to after me, who needs $7 million when they just gave me $100,000, probably he gets as an assignment, make it small, and that we can see in 2 months from now, and then come back. You understand? So it happens. Once people get it, it goes very fast.
Yeah, because when I do some workshops with people, actually, I've often got this question from developers saying that, it's nice to talk about design thinking when you've got a business team involved, when you've got the market realities involved, you've got information from the product teams, product management. But we guys here are deep down technical. We are doing algorithms. How do we innovate? I mean, how is it going to be useful for us? No, that's the classic question that a lot of guys ask. Yes, the answer is, unless there is a collaboration from the marketing team, the business side, the user base, probably design thinking would fail as an exercise. But still, you can use it in smaller teams also to facilitate collaboration and so on. So what's been your take on, how teams can do deep down design thinking sprints and so on, when they head along into so much of technical details that they often complain is, we guys are too technical, we don't know the market realities, and you guys are walking us through design thinking. How is it going to help us? What's been your experience in that regard when you talk to companies?
That's really funny. I just wrote a new book for my first maiden speech as a professor. And it's in Dutch again, because we're in the Netherlands, but it's named The Power of Imagination.
Oh, I can't see it. Probably a bit closer. Yes. Okay.
The Power of Imagination.
I can see a matchbox in a stick. It's popping
out. Because that's how you just heard me.
Okay, how do you ignite?
Yeah, light it, and exactly. But I start off actually with an IT example, exactly what you were talking about. And I start off with, this was something I got when I was doing my PhD. I was filming a large IT project. 4 locations worldwide, 200 people involved. Market is in the United States. Planning was in Japan. The product interface and stuff like that were designed in the Netherlands. That I was part of that team. The system architecture was done in France, and the real coding was done partly in India and partly in Romania. Welcome to a modern, normal IT project, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's how the world is right now.
This is how it's the world like. And they were completely stuck, because no one had a clue what to make exactly, because the Americans, they sent off that they needed something for the customers, and they were like, what on earth do they need? We don't understand. So they were just making something. And then I filmed this meeting where the Americans and the French and the Dutch were sitting together, system architects, user interface, and the main client were sitting in one room, and they were having
sorry to interrupt you, Guido. How did you film it? Do you have a cameraman on site in the US and way back, or was it over a video call?
They were there. This was pre-corona and actually a couple of years ago, so there was no corona at all. So, but they were all in one room, and I had 4 cameras around it.
Oh, okay.
I put them in a usability lab for those who understand what a usability lab is. So you have these cameras, you can steer, you can actually see what they're writing down and stuff like that. And they were knowledgeable that they were filmed, but they were discussing for 2 days. And the funny thing was, Kieran, what happened is that the Americans wanted something, and the R&D guys, they were responding with, oh, that's going to take at least half another year and 2 million of budget and stuff like that. And the Americans said, no, we have to do it cheaper. And they had this discussion. And the funny thing was, I was looking at it and I was like, damn, these guys don't, I'm not sure if they do understand each other. Okay. And now on day 2, at 10 o'clock in the morning, something magically happened. And this is where the design thinking system. It was actually a young guy, a user interface designer. He said, I was sketching last night on what the Americans want, and I envision it like this. I think you guys want something like this. And they were just showing the Windows user interface with tabs and stuff like that. And he said, I think you want something like this. And then if you click this, we get here. And he had these big sheets of paper and he put it up front and he was talking about it. And the Americans immediately stood up, sat next to him. No. We need to do something else here. The technical guys who were there, they were like, yes, but if we have this page over here, this is going to be hard in the architecture, but we can also put it here. Is that okay for the user interface? Now, what I witnessed is that from being a team, like the politician was talking about, yes and no, suddenly they found a way, a language to communicate together about what is it that we are making, that we think we are making. And they found, and this is in literature named a boundary object, a tangible object that enables to understand each other, to find a common language that we all understand so that we can have discussions and reflect on it in our own IT guy, knowledge, user interface, marketing, planning. These guys could all reflect on it from their specific knowledge domains, but still have a discussion together. And in 2 hours' time, they completely developed the architecture of the user interface and thereby the architecture of the IT, what they had to build. And suddenly, everyone knew what to make. Now, this is what I say, this is real, genuine design thinking. Stop talking, make things visible, imagine what it might look like. This is how it could look like. This is how it could look like. We could do it like this. Hey, guys, what do you think? And suddenly we can talk about this is the implication for business is this, and this is the implication for the technological perspective, and this is the implication for the planning perspective. Okay, so is that okay? No, let's take another one. This is the implication for the business, this is the implication, and so on. And suddenly, by showing options, small steps, it was just hand drawn, nothing big, nothing fancy. We had a great conversation. And it was actually the moment that I was like, less talking and more images. I started to understand that. Facilitating collective intelligence.
Okay. How much of the role does a facilitator play? Because there could be, guys who are with the highest salaries, they call hippo guys, the highest paid person's influence matters in the room. So those guys might be snowballing other people's ideas. So how much does the role of a facilitator play, to balance out everybody's idea and take things into perspective? Of course, if he's a product owner, then probably he knows which way to drive the product. But how do you think that should really happen, actually?
I think product owners are underestimated by how important they can be. And at the same time, they we have too much expectations once these people lack specific skills, because these people should be able to envision and show what might be possible in what you just say. And maybe I'm not sure if I should go that line. I'm just going to test, and otherwise, Kieran, you cut it out and whatever. There is this article, and I really like it. It's on serial innovators. It's people in companies who again and again and again and again were capable to innovate. And what she is describing in there, it was in the Journal of Product Innovation Management, is that these people have a specific kind of personality. They're always have at least 10, 20 years of experience. Very often they had different kind of roles. So they were in the technical side, they were in the marketing side for some reason, or in the service side for some reason, and stuff like that. And they have a personal affiliation to make something. They really like, I had customers, impossible what they had to do. Now I'm going to do something about it. My personal responsibility. And these people, they were always bending the rules inside the companies. They never fit in the boxes in the normal roles and stuff like that. And these people were the people that enabled major breakthroughs in innovation. And that's this article about. Now you ask me, what's the role of facilitators and product owners and stuff like that? And actually what you hear is you need people who are seasoned, who are experienced, who saw multiple perspectives, multiple frames, and feel an obligation to make something out there in the world. Are they managers? Never. It are technical people with an obligation to do something in the world. And those are the people I think are least appreciated inside companies today. But those are the people that make the world turn.
So I think Steve Jobs lacked personality who doesn't fit into the, as you said, the actual boxes that of the lines of reporting and so on. So yeah, very difficult to find those people, but the guys with that inner passion, they can really, and with multiple different perspectives they bring to the table. They should have spent a lot of time in different sections of the company. Very true. I think that's what's really needed. And if a facilitator can have that kind of a role, then he becomes that de facto person, as you said, who can really,
the other way around. Maybe they're hard to find, but
yeah,
maybe we have to develop them. And this is where the management kicks in. So, for instance, you need to reconsider if all roles should be neatly divided, or that you have more like roles that are overlapping. Maybe we should move people from one role to another role in another project so that they have multiple perspectives. You develop these people. You give them the possibility, like it's a famous example that in a company like Google, you can spend some time. If you want to make something, you can actually get some time to make the thing that you believe is important. Well, these kind of things, that's how you culture, how you enable people to grow.
Absolutely. I think there's this movement called agenda shift. You reminded me of that, which wherein employees define what their agenda should be rather than the management dictating them.
Exactly.
So that way they only love doing what they love to do. And there's nobody to complain, and so they can't complain saying I'm in a wrong job, I don't like my job, that kind of stuff, because you chose and you signed up for what you love to do, and obviously there are no two ways.
You're not even going to have the discussion with these people.
Correct,
because
correct.
That it's more like, thank you for allowing me to do what I want.
Absolutely.
And I even get paid.
True. I think that's a very nice point. I think this doesn't need any editing. But on the other hand, I also saw your stuff that developing metaphors are quite important when you're on the design thinking path. So can you explain the importance of how metaphors can help team alignment, how teams can think and help solve complex, wicked problems if a metaphor is defined right? So can that be explained?
And it's, by the way, yes, metaphors are important, but it's hard to find them.
Absolutely,
so it takes some time.
Because you can drive people in different directions if you get on the wrong metaphor.
Oh, you're completely right. Well, the thing is, another famous book. It's called Metaphors We Live By, from Lakoff and Johnson. It's in for people who are into languages or sociology. It's a must read. But I think for most IT people, this is commonly unknown. But what these guys say is that whatever we do, we think in metaphors. That's how our brain operates. So, for instance, because we're always standing as human beings, we believe that something which is up is better than something which is low down there. That's where your feet are, where the dirt is. And actually, you see the same metaphor inside the company. Higher ranking, but there's no company who ever made organogram, is that the right word in English? Where actually the top, the managers are on the lower part of the thing. It's always drawn like this. So this is what a metaphor is. It's deep inside us. Now, if you take a look at design teams, you need to find what I name a productive metaphor that enables people to see like, okay, even though I'm not sure about the details, I get the bigger picture. And I'm going to give one example. It's not from me. It's from another famous book, Frame Innovation. They said this was a social problem that in specific areas in Australia, Sydney, I believe, or Melbourne, I don't know. They go out, young people go out, but there were a lot of fights, harassments, stuff like that. The classic metaphor is that these guys are like hooligans. They should be treated badly and we should punish them and we should get the police out and stuff like that. So that's what happened over there. And in time, things got worse. Within this metaphor that these guys are bad guys, that's the metaphor, things got worse. So the police got out there, and in the military, police had to get out there on horsebacks, and actually these young guys were actually finding ways to, hey, we can rebel, this is nice, we go out there and stuff like that. Then another metaphor was developed by a university in Melbourne from design students. They say this is really funny because if you take a look at it, it resembles very much a festival. Young people going out there drinking, guys, girls, all together, having problems with their hormones and stuff like that. But the funny thing is, at the festival, they go out there, have a great time, enjoy each other, and never have a fight. So what is it, what the festival does, what these hooligans do not have, or something like that? And using the metaphor of festival, because if you take a look at a music festival, they have stages with different programs. You have bars,
hippies and all those kind of people. Gypsies,
yeah, you have hippies, gypsies, yes, all kind of people, but also normal. Let's say. But the thing is, if you take a look
at
to
have fun, yeah, that changes the whole perspective. True, very.
Yeah, but let me add one thing. But the festival has more, because, for instance, a festival you can go to look at something, but you can also eat something or have a coffee or have a drink over there. They have special programs in between, and this is what they did in Melbourne. So rather than just having the clubs out and people coming out who are clashing, they suddenly had in the middle coffee bars that were open at night. They had festivals with small football tournaments in the evenings in the streets. So they changed the complete atmosphere from something which is just in there and then you come out and clash to a place that looked like a festival, and crime rates went down drastically.
Okay.
So you see, so the metaphor of a festival, because I'm now talking about the coffee bars, it could also talk about having stewards, young people with t-shirts. I'm a steward, you can ask me anything, rather than police with caps and helmets and stuff like that. But with the same goal, to get people quiet, to make sure that things don't get out of hand. But the stewards, young people, girls, they like used at festivals, totally change the atmosphere. Now, this is a metaphor because it goes in many directions. You can still see the festival metaphor. For those who are interested, designingoutcrime.com. It's all on the internet. You can read about it. Many more cities are using this program nowadays. This metaphor of a festival rather than hooligans.
What is the website, Guido? Designing for Crime, is it?
Designing Out Crime.
Oh, Designing.
You can find it on it. Okay. Designing Out Crime. This is. Okay. I didn't do it myself. I would love to have done it, but this is what I mean. Design thinking for really complex, wicked problems is possible.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's fantastic. I think brilliant. So just to pick your brains on the example that you give about that plastic cups and mixing it with tomatoes that are going to be trashed out, and then providing it to lonely people, trying to get them and to mingle, and so creating sustenance. What do you think would be a good metaphor? Of course, people didn't know that they'll end up with that. But what do you think would be a good metaphor from your perspective to get people hooked onto solving something like that? In hindsight, I mean, probably that's not the right way to go about it, but just picking your brains. What do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Well, the thing is, the metaphor they started with was it's called elephant grass. This grass as a material. That's the metaphor. So we can
Okay.
make plastic out of it.
Oh, okay.
That's but the thing is, the food waste thing kicked in, and the social thing, and maybe a good metaphor for that is, well, actually, this as I said, metaphors are not that easy. So now you got me to demonstrate live how hard it is.
Very true.
I need 5 more minutes. I get back to that later. Is
Sure,
that okay?
sure.
I see the frame change. So
Sure.
from a technical property, they went to social, and
True.
what can we do in with social cohesion and stuff like that.
Correct.
I'm still thinking about what's the metaphor behind it.
Maybe the food chain or something could be a good example of something in the food chain, because one part of it, not everything would fall into the food chain, but the last part of the thrashing tomatoes and making it available to people. So probably the food chain, output of one system becomes an input to another one or something like that. And yeah, it's tough.
I
It's
think
tough.
it's more like the metaphor is more that they had, and I'm still not sure what, but they put something in the middle. Let me put it like that, and then they started to think what kind of social issues, from food waste to loneliness to social cohesion to recyclable materials and stuff, sustainable things. They all try to connect it to the same one thing. So it's a solution looking for problems, and I don't know the metaphor yet.
True, true. I think I'm just reminded of something similar to what you're saying. It's called Google storming or something. So, in case you want to write a PhD thesis for one of your, as you said, you chance upon idea that I want to write something on artificial intelligence. So you just Google on it says just randomly look at something in your office or outside your window. So if you find an office pin, so you just Google office pin on the thing, and then probably just randomly click on one link that Google shows, and probably it shows some Wikipedia link of a pin. And pin, the manufacturer of the pin was in England in this and such a date, and it was by this guy who invented. So that will trigger your mind to think about various different options and connect it with your intelligence, artificial intelligence idea, and then branch off into these multiple different. So I think Google storming, or I think in plain words it would be brainstorming, like what you said. But yeah, I think getting your mind to kick off in divergent directions probably is a good aspect of that. So that's typically a good. What do you think would be an aha moment, Guido, from your experience that you've had consulting many different organizations and companies? So something that to this effect, that you radically changed the way you ended up doing stuff. What would be your aha moment? Maybe one or two instances when you worked across multiple clients. So this was a
Sorry.
good example point. The elephant grass was a good thing in point. But what would be others like that?
And you mean like for companies? Because I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I don't understand the company completely.
With any of your companies or in the academic world, like you wanted to solve problem A, but you entirely chanced upon something very radical, and then you went out to solve something else because the path led you to something different. What you might become, because you keep emphasizing that in a lot of your presentations, the possibility of what you might become. Actually, that's a very good point for a designer to have, because you never know where you're going to land up with. So what would be some blue oceans that you have discovered along the path that way?
Well, I think one of the most important things, and I'm going to introduce two German words, but it's just people who are in change and know these words. And that's, we have an existing situation, which is the existing situation, and we have the preferred situation in the end, which is called the Soll in Germany. In English, it's something like what is and what should. Now, and what I say is, if I take a look at companies nowadays, IT companies, or the example I gave before with this team who was working for an American client and stuff like that, they pretty know well the existing situation. And they describe in words, by means of a project brief, what the Soll should be, or something like that. But that's in words. And what I say is, that's my biggest advice for any company, also in IT, make it visual. What is it that we believe that the should be? And the funny thing is, once we start making this visual by showing it, then suddenly everyone is having this discussion that actually this is not what should be. But by having this discourse, in the end, we have an image that say, okay, yes, this, we believe that this is something that should be. That's tip one. So make sure that you not only write and talk about it, but make it visual. For instance, for IT, make the user interface visual. Just show the entire interface in a paper prototype, stuff like that. Show it to your client. Why not? It looks ridiculous, but still you can have a conversation. That's tip one. And tip two is accept the fact that these things are constantly changing because you learn on the go. And this is Agile. So once we learned a lot, we need to revisualize where we're heading. We need to do it again. So we believe this is it. And this is something, so what I see nowadays, for instance, in IT companies, is that they start off as a startup. I coach startups as well. Then they have these two visions completely clear. Then they have their first paying customer, get into a lot of trouble, change a lot of things, and then forget visualizing whether with all the new insights, they forget making it visual. And then suddenly things go down. People don't know exactly what they're making inside their teams. The customer doesn't know what he can expect and stuff like that. So the second tip is make sure that at all time you can show, hey guys, that's where we're heading. This is the thing we're heading, right? We're all agree? Okay, then we go on. And in 10 years of consulting, last 10 years, these are the simple two questions I always ask at every client. Can you show me what you think the situation is? And can you show me what you think your team is heading to? And the funny thing is, 8 out of 10, they can't show me what they think they're heading to.
Okay.
And then I stop, because then immediately they are like, shit, that's a problem.
True. I think somewhere down the line you mentioned about the finicky problem of the printer paper getting stuck in the printers, and that's a very hard problem to solve from designers, engineers, customer experience guys, and all that, because most often you design a printer, but invariably, I mean, I was using the Canon printer the other day at my home, and I need to change the ribbon for it, and it keeps moving like this constantly, and there's no particular way at which you will get stuck stationarily and say, okay, I want to change it now. I was just wondering, why can't they make it so, why can't it be intuitive? Just make it, I was like, it just keeps it like a moving target. I just need to grab it and then change the ribbon. As simple as that, that makes a lot of difference to the user experience.
I know. I know. I've been working in that area for 20 years. It's very hard to make things very simple.
Exactly. So I think maybe that's the reason why Apple is one of the most. You can have your granny and grandpa and grandma use Apple products. Probably that's the reason why it is far more easier. As you said, to make the easiest thing is very difficult. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
And culturally might be different. I did a long time ago, had nothing to do with what we're talking about right now, but for IT specialists, I think quite interesting. We did a review on how people perceive a user interface of a software program in different cultures. In Brazil, in the United States, in Germany, in Italy, and in the Netherlands. Not in India, sorry for that. It was really funny, because things that were considered to be intuitive and simple in the Netherlands were considered to be difficult and incomprehensible in the United States, whereas in the United States, they're very oriented towards language. So every button should have a short description, what the functionality is about and stuff like that. When we showed those things to the Dutch people or to the German people, they were like, oh, this is terrible. This is not intuitive at all.
Okay.
So why I say this is maybe Apple is even smarter than what you just mentioned, because they are capable to do that cross-culturally, which is really difficult.
Very true. Very true. I think that's absolutely nice. But I didn't know that UIs are also interpreted in various ways in different cultures, because if it is not intuitive, yes, it is not intuitive. It's such a big problem. So how do you approach, I think this is a good mindset to have, as you said, what is there today and what is that you want to have, the preferred current solution versus what you really want to have. and then your journey from the as is to the to be, like what they say. That's a nice thing to have. But in between, what do you think are the steps that would, I'm sure, you can end up doing a 2-day, 3-day workshop on just taking them through this path. But at a high level, what would be a bird's eye view of how you could, go through these processes, and what's in your opinion, the converge, diverge, and your collective experience, if you had to condense it in like 5 minutes or so, what would you be making teams do typically? Very hard
I'm going.
question.
No,
But
no, I can explain very simply, but give
yeah.
me 1 minute because I need a very short sanitary break. Is that okay, Kieran?
Yes, I think I'll pause it for a minute and then you can be back.
I'll be back in a minute.
Yes,
So,
Guido, please walk us through your process.
yeah, the funny thing is, again, I'm just using some images from the book. I'm going to show it. This is the
Please.
first one. I don't know if you can see it. It's called the Designed Squiggle. This one.
Yes. I have seen that actually. It's a random sketching of the lines which leads to a straight path.
Yeah. The thing is, this guy, he's got famous for it, but he's describing how the process feels. Because you go all over the place, If I just explained about these students who were working on this grass and stuff like that, they went all over. So this is how it looks like. Now, once we accept that, back and forth, up and then we can talk about. But I showed that one deliberately because that's the way how it feels. This is the process I describe to my students and in my books all the time. You start with framing. So the first thing is, how do we want to see it? Can be a metaphor, or shall we see it as a sustainability issue, or shall we see it as a material issue, or shall we see it as food waste? Then you do within a frame some analysis. Not too long. Don't stick to there too long. Just do some analysis. Translate it to IT. We're going to see it like we need to do something with the text forms, for instance. Maybe we should start with the form rather than with functionality. So maybe we should start with the form in the middle and when you open it. Okay, then we go to an analysis phase, which is like, what kind of representation would we see there? What would people expect? Let's ask some people what they would expect. Then we have the ideation, brainstorm, Google Storm. Then we develop a very small, simple prototype. You visualize it or you sketch it out. Then the most important step, you're going to show it to people. Reflect together. Then you say, oh, we're wrong. Reframe, analyze, ideate, visualize, reflect. Oh, yes, this is better. This is more what we need. Better frame, improve the frame, analyze. So this is a cyclical process whereby research, analysis, research and design, ideation goes hand in hand again and again and again. And this is the most awkward thing for people who have an academic background. They like to do a lot of research, condense it into requirements, and then do the design part. What I'm saying right now is you do research, you do design, you do research, you do design, and this is where if we stop naming it the double diamond, but if we're gonna name it the multiple diamond, then I'm in. That's the process. You do it again and again and again.
True. So was that picture from your book, Guido? Actually, the one you showed, was it from your book? Actually, the one that you showed just now.
Yeah, this is the one which is in all my books. I developed it, and to be honest, it's actually a combination of what I discussed before, the rational perspective, because people need rationality in teams.
True.
And the more practice-based, like, oh, we just frame it, do something and test it. And that's the reason why I came up with this thing. And actually, maybe you can see it on the site. There are parts which I always say you need to do within the team or even on your own. Go to your room, start thinking and making. And there are some parts you can never, ever should do on your own, like making a decision. Is this a good product or not? And this is really funny. Especially in IT, I noticed many IT specialists make a lot of choices for their users because they think, oh, this is much more easy if we do it like this. Okay, so we're going to do it like this. And I'm always like, well, how can you be so sure that this is much more simple for your users? Because you're a very experienced guy. You know all about whatever.
True. I think, is there a plan to bring out the English version of your books by any chance? No.
As I said, now I've been, the thing is, I'm going to have this, we're already in the 6th edition, and I'm considering to do a big revision on it, really textually, and then we're going to have an English version as well, because
Yep.
especially in India and Sri Lanka, for some reason, I don't know why, I had at least already 20 people asking for me whether it could be in English. So I don't know why, for some reason, well, you found me as well. I don't know why, but yes, there are some people who want an English version. I noticed.
Yeah. Apparently, I saw your TED talk a couple of months ago. I watched it fully, wherein you talked about that square in Rotterdam, when people sit around, hang around, have a cup of coffee, smoke, do whatever, and finally they convert it into a rainwater harvesting sort of stuff. And then accidentally, few months later, when I found you on LinkedIn, it was the same person. I saw your TED talk yesterday night. I just saw that I had watched your TED talk couple of months ago, and then that's how I chanced upon your stuff. So I think that's a very nice way of. It's called water plane or something, right? It was.
It's in Rotterdam. Yeah. Again, and you asked me some time ago, and I promised you to get back to it on the metaphor.
Yeah,
it's really funny.
Yes.
What these girls were all girls, and one guy actually. So 5 girls, 1 guy, but. The metaphor they were using, for me at least, is that they put something together. So it feels a little bit like, these magnetic marbles. So you have magnetic marble, we have more marbles. Let's get them together. Let's see which problems click together into something nice. That's what they were looking like. Oh, we can also do something on food waste, and we can do something on social cohesion.
Yeah.
And now come to think of it, and now you give me an idea for maybe a new book or something. Thank you. Because this waterplein, the water square, basically is doing the same. They combine problems that has seemingly nothing in common. They put it together, and then suddenly solving 2 problems in one go is actually a very cheap thing. Whereas each project in itself, what they build over there would be far too expensive. So what they say is, you know what? Let's make it more complex, make it even more complex, even more wicked. Now we get it all together, and now we have one thing that solves a lot of things at the same time.
Oh, that's really
I
nice.
like that. Yeah, I like that actually.
Correct. So I think you could have a chapter on probably how you can arrive at metaphors or something like that in your book, maybe.
Yeah, but maybe this is one of the reasons. But this is a new idea. Just you're witnessing it. Maybe this is a very nice thing for using in a social context to explain why we need design thinking in a social context. Because this is the way how designers think. Just add something.
Correct.
Rather than trying.
Yeah, I think before we probably conclude this, Guido, how do you think design thinking has helped you in your day-to-day life? How could you be a better resourceful person using design thinking? Because people use design thinking in their everyday life also. So they say design thinking for everyday living and so on. So from your own life, how do you think it has impacted the way you go about things, your life? Like you've been mixing academic knowledge with consultancy, the real world knowledge, and that's a very rich way to go, because you don't get stuck in one completely or the other. So how do you balance those 2 worlds? How has it helped you to be a colorful, rich, multifaceted personality?
Well, thank you for apparently what you just said to me. I take it as a compliment. The funny thing is, Kieran, it actually works the other way around. Maybe you're one. I don't know you yet well enough, but maybe in a way, I guess actually you're kind of a design thinker as well. I recognize.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I myself, I've seen that I can get out of problems with this radical way of thinking. It has helped me a lot. I can get out of situations, and I would think 10 different ways of how to get out of a situation. And then usually 1 or 2 works. And I can give you many examples of how I turned around scrap into some piece of art or something like that. And then it gives me so much of joy and satisfaction internally. But yeah, I think I just want to hear your perspectives on. But
No,
very
no, but
true.
the
Yeah.
thing is that if I make it very rational, let me put it like that, there are people who are really good in in finding the broadness. They always can adapt other perspectives. They always like and actually get bored if they are stuck into one perspective. So
True.
if
True.
you're just into IT coding, you can do that for 3 months, and then you're like, oh man, I need to do something else. Then
Very
you
true.
got to do, and of course you can develop some hobbies or stuff like that. But there are people who have this tendency, and there are people who like it to be much more to go into depth into one topic and stuff like that. Now, design thinkers, what I noticed, are people who are always broad, always find it hard to stick to one thing, always, even when they don't want it, get ideas. Probably happened to you as well, that you're like, oh my god, I'm so busy, and now you just witnessed me. I just got an idea for a new book. You were there. I was really like, I need to do something on that. It just happened in between us, but this is how design thinkers work. Now, I just wrote an article for the Journal of Positive Psychology, the Dutch version again. Sorry guys, I'm in the Netherlands. And I explained that if we take a look at positive psychology, which is the psychology strand, which is not looking at deficiencies, but at the good things you have and how to make them flourish. What I say is, if you have these skills that you can actually move easily from one frame to another and are creative, it is very helpful for yourself to find your way in life, but also it's very helpful for others because you keep popping up these things. So cultivate it, embrace it, even though many companies, for instance, like you to become a specialist. And this is what I like about that design thinking is so much on the rise nowadays. More and more companies are starting to see that actually people like you, Kieran, who they can't fit into a box. We're always trying to do something else. When they say we need to do this, that after 1 week, you probably come back. You say, you know what? We should do something else. Oh no!
Yeah.
Don't say that, Kieran. But so in the past, these were troublemakers, and nowadays we start to see that actually these people are innovators.
Yeah,
So
I think you
embrace
you
it.
you just summed up my biography in some companies, because I was just moving from one thing to another because I was so bored of doing the same thing, and I was doing it quite well. But and as you said, the management wanted me to do that quite well to death, to the point of being bored in it. I used to pick up a lot of other portfolios. Okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. Let me try that. And as you said, that gave me a lot of scope to broaden my base, because I tried a lot of new things differently. And I think that's the essence of the heart of a design thinker, maybe. So in one of the, I think I wrote my own bio somewhere for one consulting engagement. I said, I'm a designer at heart. So although officially I've never donned that mantle, but I did call my, and currently I've renamed my company to be Eternity Business Design. So I think
That's
serendip
ambitious. Eternity business design. So
business
that's really
design.
ambitious.
Yeah, helping companies solve wicked problems using the combination of enterprise architecture, lean, and design thinking practices. So because I
How is that
see,
in India actually? Is there a lot of companies who embrace it as well, or is it you still have to sell hard?
no, actually, the large companies are sending exodus of people for design thinking. Like Infosys, their 130,000 staff in batches. The entire current company completed design thinking workshops, right from the top all the way to the middle and the lower management. They did that, and a lot of companies are following. IBM is huge on design thinking world over. Then Infosys has done it, and Mercedes-Benz, of course, I think probably they're German, or I mean, they are also doing it here in Bangalore for their teams. Yes, it is there. The demand is on the increase. It is there, but yeah, to sell it is hard, as you said. To sell it is hard because I get often asked this question. Okay, we guys so down deep technical. We don't understand the business. We are not the customer facing team. So you guys are talking about all of these nice UI UX things. We don't even get to see those things. So how do you think we should be adapting it in our perspectives? We have not seen a marketing guy all our life. We have not seen a sales guy all our life. We've been coding for months together in front of a PC and that kind of stuff. So that is going to be a challenge.
If my recommendation would be to them, okay, let's meet. Let's see them alive, and let's get at least one time together, and let's do a hackathon or whatever. And
Correct.
but anyway, so you still have a lot of things to do. Hey, I kind of noticed as well, Kiran, you really read a lot because you actually been reading my PhD. I think you're 1 out of 2 because I'm the other guy.
That's what people told me, that I do research on.
Yeah, I noticed. I'm quite impressed. I'm quite impressed. I was really like, man, he's really been studying it. Hey, there's one book I definitely recommend.
Oh, okay,
it's not
please.
for mine. It's English, and I think it's by far. But no, it's by far the best book written, academic book written on design thinking ever, and it's called Managing as Designing, and it's from. It's from what it is. If you want, I'll send you the link.
Sure. Who's the author, by the way? You know the author?
Colopy. I'm going to show it. Wait. Bolens and Colopy. And Managing as Designing. So you can take a look back. So now I don't need to send it over anymore. But the thing is, this is, what the interesting thing is, because I noticed you're a very reflective person. What they did is, this is a professor, Bolens, from economics, from MBA actually, and they hired a really great architect to redesign their building. And what happened is that from hiring an architect, they become advocates of design thinking because they were really like, how this guy is doing it. It's amazing. It's totally different. They did a conference, a scientific conference, and they asked all, because this Mr. Bolens, he's really famous in academia. He asked all his friends and acquaintances to reflect on the case of this Frank Gehry, the architect, designing this. So you have all these great minds, like Schein, Orlikovsky, and other thinkers, Liedtke, people who are nowadays famous for other reasons, or Liedtke even on design thinking. They were writing one essay on how they perceive design thinking, and you get the entire academic scope written in small essays on why design thinking is amazing. And I think you're going to love it, because you can read one essay a day. And
is it available as a Kindle version or something, or it's only hard copy?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, I'll check it out. I'll Google it and find out. No problems.
It's a big book. So big. It's from. Who is the publisher? I'm pretty sure that probably it's also Kindle or whatever. But it's because I noticed that you really like to read. This is the book, the best book by far, because all the other things like what I'm writing is just trying to tickle it down into more normal words. But if you like to have the high level one, this is the one.
Okay. Thanks Guido for that. Definitely. So I think apart from your book, what are your last words to somebody who wants to be a design thinker, business designer? So what's your piece of advice on how one should go about cultivating, read books, get real hands-on experience, as you said, make, break stuff, and keep doing stuff, as you said, and then show it to the customers and the people who really would use it? I think that's going to shape yourself. So what's, if you were to sum it up into probably 1 or 2 minutes, what's your piece of advice for people who want to be budding designers? And you don't have to be, some people mistake saying that, okay, you got to be a good artist to be that, you have to have a sense of aesthetics or something like that.
Nothing.
But exactly.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset. Absolutely. It's a way of thinking. So it has nothing to do with aesthetics or art or whatever. The trick I pull with both students and even manage CTOs of big companies, I always pull the same trick. And this is a recommendation for your listeners, Kiran. Have a project. Make a planning the way you always do it. And do it seriously. And let's, for instance, say you have 10 weeks or something like that. Okay? Probably it looks like this. I'm pretty sure it looks like this, and some people will have a little bit more time over there. I think you need at least 3 or 4 weeks to analyze what's needed and stuff like and you have probably 1 week needed for writing it down, what is needed. Then you have a brainstorm session, or maybe 2 brainstorm sessions. Then you know what to make, and then you're going to engineer it for the last 5 weeks and 4 weeks, and then at the last week you're going to test it, right? That's the, I'm pretty sure. The thing is, I let them make the planning. I say, okay, you want to be a design thinker. Throw this one in the garbage can. I want a prototype tomorrow, the first prototype tomorrow. Yes, I know that sounds hard and you don't understand what the prototype is, but I want to see something what's on your mind tomorrow, and we're going to invite the customer over and he's going to take a look at it as well. That's day 1 of the same 10 weeks. And they're looking at me like, that's impossible. And I'm always like, no, you know what? Now, if you say, what's my word of advice? Throw away those plannings as you used to make them in the garbage can and start to make a planning which looks like again and again and again and again. And because we don't know whether we're going to need 20 iterations or 3, let's make sure that the first ones are really short. So tomorrow, I want to see some kind of prototype, maybe made from cardboard or just drawn out on a whiteboard. It doesn't matter, but I want to see something on your mind, and I want to have the client here as well. Now that's the biggest advice I can give, because once you did it like this, and you start doing it that, and you get all these reflections, you're going to say, this Guido, he's madman, because I need a book. And I say, yes, by the time we are in our 5th iteration, you have finished the book at the same time as well. But by then we already have 5 prototypes. We learned so much more. Otherwise, you just would have read the book.
Absolutely. So basically keep breaking, making, and meet your customer as soon as possible.
Yeah. But the tip is this: as a coach, I'm always saying, I want to see something tomorrow. Tomorrow, not in 10 weeks, tomorrow. Okay. And I don't care that you can't do it like that. Do it.
Okay.
Show me something tomorrow.
Okay.
And if they can't, then they need another coach. You can't go into design thinking. It's the same in Agile and the design sprints. In 6 weeks, we're going to deliver. Yes, but we don't know what to make. 6 weeks. Yeah, so you're right. It's about making and reflecting. Breaking, making, reflecting.
Bias towards action. So basically keep doing stuff, keep breaking stuff, but get out something. No matter
get
how
out
bad.
Something, because otherwise, even when it's a shitty idea, I'm saying to my students all the time as well, even when it's a shitty idea, I want to see it. And your client as well, because maybe you think it's a shitty idea and your client thinks it's brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think.
And when you think this is brilliant, maybe your client thinks it's shitty. How can we know?
Yeah, very true. That's fantastic. So thank you. Thanks, Guido. I think thanks for your time very much. And I'm sure this was a very interesting conversation. We chanced upon a lot of different perspectives, diverged and converged a lot on different aspects of it. So here is wishing you a great weekend out there in the Netherlands, and definitely we'll be in touch. So thank you very much, and do let us know when your book is out in English for sure.
By now I know you're probably one of those people who will have the right network to promote it in India. So yes, I will find you by then, Kira. Don't worry. Hey, thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.